So you're bored of your smartwatch and you've decided to buy your first mechanical watch. Congratulations. This is exactly how innocent people end up timing their pasta with a £10,000 chronograph. But before you commit your wallet to a lifelong relationship with gears, springs, and questionable financial decisions, you should absolutely watch this video. And I'm not just saying that because I need the watch funding revenue, although that also. I'm saying it because there are a few things you really want to know before you strap a tiny mechanical thing onto your wrist and announce to your friends that you are now officially a watch person. Let's get the painful part out of the way. They're how much? Mechanical watches cost money. Real money, not monopoly money. And sometimes a lot of money. Money that could have gone toward rent, groceries, or a girlfriend that you need to make up with. If you think your £200 smartwatch is expensive, you may want to hold your breath, because good mechanical watches can start at around £150, but go all the way up to the stratosphere. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of pounds. But a mechanical watch is more than just a time-telling device. It's a miniature ticking piece of engineering. They are genuinely fascinating if you get to know them. You're not just buying steel and sapphire, you're buying craftsmanship, tradition, and the excuse to tell people it has an in-house movement, even though nobody knows what that means. All jokes aside, it's pretty crucial you watch this video because you need to know the difference between a watch that's well made and expensive and a watch that's expensive not because it's well made, but because the marketing team has done their job. So why all the money? Well, let's start with the movement because that's the heart of any mechanical watch. At the low end, you'll often find simple mass-produced movements borrowed from large suppliers. They're reliable, robust, and cheap because they're made in huge numbers by machines and experienced factories that have optimized every step. There's nothing wrong with these movements. They might just not be that pretty to look at, and they might not last as long as some of the higher end ones. Having said that, all movements are moving, so they inevitably need to be serviced, just like your car engine. The better movement, the less likely it'll need servicing, but there are exceptions to this rule. At the higher end, you get in-house movements, designed, created, developed, and often finished by the brand itself. Designing a movement takes engineering time, prototyping, testing, and retooling. Producing it often requires small batch machining, hand adjustment, and time-consuming regulation. That development and the pride of having your own movement adds human hours and exclusivity to the price of a watch. Materials make a massive difference too. Basic stainless steel and mineral glass are economical and do the job just fine. However, scratch-resistant sapphire crystals, polished ceramic bezels, grade A surgical steel, and precious metals like gold and platinum cost way more. Then there are specialty materials, things like silicone hairsprings, ceramic components, or exotic alloys. These exotic elements require sophisticated supply chains and often raise both performance and cost. Even the tiny bits you never see, like jewels and engineered lubricants, add up when quality and lifespan are priorities. Finishing is another little magic trick that can inflate prices. Two watches with the same basic parts can be worlds apart if one receives careful hand finishing to make it more aesthetic to the human eye. I'm talking about beveled edging, pearlage, striping, polished screws. These details take time, skill, and specialized tools. A machine can stamp components quickly, a hand polisher slows down production and costs money, but the result is visibly nicer and more collectible. Then there's complications. Chronographs, moon phases, perpetual calendars, tourbillons. These are tiny mechanical features that increase complexity tenfold. Each additional function requires more parts, more assembly steps, more testing, and more adjustments. A simple three-hand movement is relatively cheap. A perpetual calendar is an engineering puzzle that demands hundreds of extra hours of design and hand labor. Then there's the human factor, assembly and regulation. Many luxury watches are assembled and adjusted by experienced watchmakers who test timings in multiple positions, hand regulate the movement, and perform quality control checks that catch issues a machine might miss. This attention to detail improves accuracy and reliability, but it is expensive labor. Where the watch is made matters too. Production in Switzerland, Germany, or Japan carries different labor costs, regulatory frameworks, and reputational premiums. If you've ever heard of Swiss made, for instance, it's not just a label. It denotes a set of rules and, crucially, a long-established perception of quality that brands charge big money for. Brand heritage and storytelling are also big multipliers. A company with a century of history, military associations, or famous wearers can command more because buyers are paying for something truly special. Limited editions and scarcity do the same thing. If only 100 pieces of a watch exist, collectors are willing to pay a premium because rarity fuels desirability and potential resale value. Marketing and distribution are not free either. Glossy ad campaigns, celebrity partnerships, retail boutiques, and authorized dealer networks all need funding. There are also deliberate design decisions that affect durability and longevity. A cheap watch might use low-cost seals and lubricants, and this is fine for a few years. An expensive watch will use superior gaskets, treated metals, and better lubrication that extends service intervals. Certification is another factor. Chronometer certification, performance testing, and interparent validation add credibility, which increases costs but also gives owners a documented level of precision. Finally, don't underestimate perception and emotional value. And this extends onto everything, not just watches. Part of what you pay for in an expensive watch is confidence that's been designed to last. For many watch nerds, owning something historically significant, handcrafted, or mechanically cool is worth the money. For others, a reliable, inexpensive watch that keeps time well and looks great is the smarter, more pragmatic choice. So let's look at an example. 2 watches. This is the Orient Komatsu, a mechanical dive watch created by a Japanese company. This was my first ever mechanical watch, and it costs around £250. Over time, it will slowly need adjusting because the movement isn't as accurate as, say, more expensive watches. It's made from basic stainless steel, which is super strong, but relatively affordable. This watch is priced on the lower end of mechanical watches because it's quick and easy to produce. Let's look at the second watch now. This is a Rolex Yachtmaster, and it costs around £10,500. This watch is made with premium metals and has a much more reliable and well-built movement inside. But more importantly, carries with it the name of a company that possesses a wealth of history and revere. So when you see a cheap mechanical watch, understand it's probably built for affordability, standard movements, simpler finishing, and mass production. When you see a very expensive one, you're paying for superior materials, complicated engineering, hand finishing, limited supply, and many other things. Both choices can be perfectly valid, depending on what you value. Either way, knowing what drives the cost helps you decide if you want to spend less on something fairly reliable or remortgage your house for that one dream timepiece. What type of watch person are you? Okay, so moving on, before you buy anything, you may want to figure out who you really are. Are you a dive watch person? This is someone who buys a watch rated for 600 meters of water resistance just to go swimming in your local gym. Or maybe you're a dress watch person, the kind who loves clean dials, polished cases, and wearing a suit every day for no reason. Or perhaps you're a chronograph person, someone drawn to buttons and subdials and timing things nobody asked you to time. There are many types of watches you can buy in this hobby, so try to identify your preference before dropping money on a watch that might not match your personality. It's important not to put too much pressure on yourself here. Your interests will shift and evolve naturally over time. I myself have always loved dive watches, but I definitely went through a chronograph phase, and now I'm apparently into field watches. Okay, next up is size, and size matters. Hopefully this video will also save you from buying a watch that looks perfect online, and then when it arrives, it looks more like you've strapped a croissant to your wrist. Lug to lug, case thickness, diameter. These are not random sayings the watch community has invented to sound smart. They will determine whether your watch fits you comfortably or not. The first number everyone fixates on is the case diameter, those classic measurements like 36mm and 40mm. This is simply the width of the watch face, and while it matters, it's not the whole story. Smaller wrists usually look best with watches in the 34 to 39mm range. Medium wrists tend to be comfortable around 38 to 42, and larger wrists can handle 41 to 45 without looking like they're wearing a pebble. But diameter alone can be deceiving, which brings us to the real MVP of watch sizing, lug-to-lug measurements. Think of this as the watch's wingspan, the distance from the top lug to the bottom lug. This is the measurement that decides whether a watch sits neatly on your wrist or hangs over the edges, which doesn't look good, by the way. The golden rule here is simple. The lug to lug should not exceed the flat top surface of your wrist. Smaller wrists tend to look best with 45 to 48 lug to lug, medium wrists around 48 to 52, and anything above that is really only comfortable if you've got larger wrists. Then there's case thickness, which determines whether your watch glides gracefully under your sleeve, if you've got one. Thin watches around 11mm or less feel sleek and dressy, while anything above 13mm starts to give sporty, chunky vibes. This isn't inherently bad, but if you've got a smaller wrist like me, thicker watches can make the watch feel heavy. Meanwhile, bigger wrists can pull off the thicker cases much easier. And of course, lurking in the background of all of these numbers are the lugs themselves, the little arms that hold the strap. So their shape and curvature can be a little sneaky. Lugs that curve downward help the watch hug your wrist and feel smaller and more comfortable, while straight lugs can make a watch wear larger than the diameter suggests. And yes, you can get small watches with long, large lugs, which makes things, well, complicated. Finally, we've got strap width, the measurement at the lugs. This is normally around 18 to 20mm. A wider strap gives the watch a more robust, sporty feel, whilst a narrower strap leans towards the more dressy and elegant. If the strap is too thin compared to the watch, then the watch will look like it skipped arm day. Too thick, and it feels like you've attached a watch to a belt. Balance is key here, people. So how do you make sure you get all of this right? Start by measuring your wrist with a tape measure, or if you're feeling smart, a piece of string and a ruler. Then compare that to the watch specs and pay special attention to lug to lug. If a product page doesn't list it, that's usually your cue to Google the model or walk away calmly, because why wouldn't you include the measurements? If you can try the watch on in store, great. Do the mirror test, look at your wrist from a normal conversational distance. Does the watch look proportionate? Does it sit nicely? Above all, trust proportions, not trends. Just because influencers are wearing tuna can-sized dive watches doesn't mean that's the ideal look for you. A well-fitting watch will always look better, in my opinion, than the overhyped one. So get the sizing right, and suddenly your watch will look like it belongs there. Okay, so let's move on to movements now, the beating heart of a watch, and arguably the coolest thing about it. And I don't need to state the obvious, but I will anyway. Mechanical watches are cool because they aren't needed. We don't need them. They were deemed pointless as soon as digital watches were created, but the ease of new technology is what a lot of people hate. You literally have a miniature timekeeping device on your wrist, full of gears and springs. It's fascinating, no matter how good technology becomes. It's timeless. But what does it all mean? Let's start with beat rate. Basically, how fast the balance wheel oscillates back and forth. This is often measured in vibrations per hour, or VPH. A higher beat rate tends to create a smoother looking sweep of the seconds hand and can improve precision because the movement takes smaller steps and recovers from shocks more quickly. But a higher beat rate also means more friction, more wear, and the need for better materials and lubrication. Lower beat rates are a bit calmer, more traditional, and a little bit more vintage energy. It's also easier on the movement's parts, but they can't absorb sudden impacts as well, so accuracy can drift more easily. Neither is automatically better, it's all about balance and engineering choices. Then there's power reserve, the amount of time your watch can run without being wound. Cheaper movements often sit somewhere between 38 to 40 hours, enough to get you through a day and a bit, but not long enough to leave your watch on the dresser all weekend. More sophisticated movements stretch the power reserve to 60, 70, even 80 hours or more, using optimized springs, better materials, and more efficient gear trains. Long power reserves mean convenience. You can switch watches, live your life, come back 2 days later, and it's still ticking like a loyal little machine. Again, there's no right or wrong here. Just know that shorter power reserves will have you winding your watch more frequently to get it going if you've taken it off. Now, the jewels. These are little synthetic rubies used at friction points, used for reducing wear. Cheap movements use fewer jewels, sometimes just the minimum needed for basic function. More advanced movements add jewels in places that improve smoothness, stability, and longevity. Jewels don't really make a watch more luxurious just by existing, they simply allow rotating parts to glide as best they can. It's like comparing a cheap office chair to one that actually rolls around without squealing. It's worth noting that movements with additional complications, chronographs, moon phases, naturally need more jewels because more pivots and axles need support. Let's talk about regulation and accuracy. Cheaper movements are often regulated to fewer positions, maybe one or two, which means they perform best in a limited set of wrist orientations. More refined movements are regulated in 3, 4, or even 5 positions, ensuring that accuracy stays within a tighter range no matter how you move during the day. Some high-end movements undergo things like chronometer testing or certification, spending days in controlled environments. Cheaper movements tell the time just fine, but they can drift more so. Not disastrously, just enough that you'll occasionally think, why am I so early or late for this meeting? Next we've got finishing, which we've touched on, the part most beginners overlook, but watch nerds obsess over like it's a personality trait. Cheap movements often keep everything bare bones, stamped parts, unpolished edges, etc. Nothing wrong with it, it works. More premium movements use beveled bridges, polished screws, Geneva stripes, yada yada. None of this makes the watch tick better, but it does make the movements more visually stunning. To a lot of watch geeks, finishing is craftsmanship in its purest form. The difference between a mass-produced watch and one hand-built by a professional carpenter. Beyond visual beauty, there's the matter of engineering. High-end movements can often use advanced materials, silicone hairsprings for magnetic resistance, ceramic components for reduced friction, improved escapement designs for stability, and so on. They sometimes include better shock protection systems, ensuring the movement can survive daily life without losing accuracy. Cheap movements can be workhorses, incredibly reliable and resilient, but don't expect them to handle magnetism, hard knocks, or long-term precision as gracefully. Finally, it's important to discuss complications, extra functions beyond timekeeping. A basic three-hand movement is simple enough, but you can get other things that make your day much more efficient and easy. Take a chronograph, for example, which is basically a mechanical stopwatch. GMT movements let you use an additional hand that moves independently so you can track more time zones. There are also other complications like moon phases, perpetual calendars, and tourbillons. Complications require extra gears, levers, and precision-fitting components. More parts means more complexity, and more complexity means more opportunities for engineering brilliance, or problems. So when you compare a cheap mechanical movement to an expensive one, you're not really comparing bad versus good. You're comparing simplicity to something more complicated. A good affordable movement is like a reliable economy car. It gets you where you need to go. An expensive movement is like a Ferrari engine. Both have their place, but once you understand what's happening under the dial, you start to appreciate watches more. Okay, so the next category is a huge part of this passion, impulse buying. This is a genuine threat in the world of mechanical watches, and it's not because you're irresponsible, it's because watch brands are really good at convincing you that you need something. Every new release is marketed like it's your soulmate. You'll hear things like limited edition, heritage inspired, and my personal favorite, available in only 200 pieces. These marketing techniques are all created to induce FOMO. Just kidding, fear of missing out. And this is when impulse buys often happen. There's a mini adrenaline rush when you see something you like, especially when there's only a small number available. Micro brands have also mastered this psychology, releasing small batches that sell out in hours, making everyone think, if it's selling fast, it must be amazing. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's just good marketing. Another impulse buy trap is the spec sheet. You'll be looking at the list of all the things a watch has, and it can be really exciting. You'll see things like ceramic bezel, sapphire crystal, 200 meters of water resistance, and you'll start comparing those things to your other watches. You'll start to think, well, my watch only has 100 meters of water resistance, so surely I need this one with 200 meters. A watch doesn't even have to be your style. The correct combination of numbers and buzzwords can really convince you to buy something on the spot. And then the new purchase arrives and you get the dopamine hit, the unboxing, the new watch smell, but 2 weeks later, the honeymoon fades. Suddenly you're noticing that the watch doesn't sit quite right, or the color doesn't match as many outfits as you had imagined, or maybe you just don't connect with it in the way that the marketing promised. And that's when the reality sets in. You didn't really choose the watch, the excitement chose for you. Here are some things you can do to avoid impulse buying. Slowing down, now this is crucial. The first step to impulse buy survival is the cooling off period. See a watch you want? Great. Don't buy it today. Give it a few days, maybe a week. If you're still thinking about it after 7 days, genuinely thinking about that watch, not just filling the void with another shiny one, then it's probably more than just a passing crush. The second step is to look at real wrist shots, not just the glamour photos brands have on their website. Go on social media, watch some videos on YouTube. Really get an idea of what the watch looks and feels like as best you can from the experiences of other people. Another strategy is imagining the watch in your rotation. Assuming you've got a rotation, do you have a purpose for it? Does it fill a gap? Or is it basically the same watch you already own in a slightly different color? Finally, trust your long-term taste more than your short-term excitement. Trends fade, but the watches that genuinely speak to you will still be calling your name months from now. Impulse buying is part of the fun, let's not pretend it isn't, but understanding the psychology behind it helps you avoid turning your watch box into a graveyard of "why did I buy that" moments. So, what's the point of getting into mechanical watches at all? Well, for me, that's easy. As a kid, I always loved anything with gears. I was obsessed with windmills and clocks. A mechanical watch is one of the very few everyday objects powered solely by physics and human design. I'm a bit of a science nerd, so for me, finding this fascinating is easy. Mechanical watches are also built to last. No batteries, no software updates, no firmware patches. They don't become obsolete in 2 years. They don't get replaced by version 14.3 of anything. They just keep on ticking. Next is community. Watch enthusiasts are a strangely warm and enthusiastic group of people. We all kind of bond over a shared fascination, stories, discoveries. Whether it's forums, videos, or meetups, we all love talking about watches, and it's all built around appreciation. Being part of this tiny community is definitely a huge honor, and you should definitely join us. When it comes to you, you'll have to find your own way in this weird and wonderful hobby. The first step is to buy your first mechanical watch, so have fun doing that and only spend what you're happy spending. The key is to follow your heart, and the rest you'll learn from there. Thanks for watching this video. If you're new to mechanical watches, there is a wealth of information out there, so be sure to check out my other videos, but also the videos of other creators in this amazing community.